I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I didn't have a Christian foundation. So when I was a little girl, my mom and dad got divorced when I was 3. And when that happened, I didn't blame myself for the divorce. But I remember thinking my dad just didn't love me enough to stick around. I saw him probably 5, 6 times until he died years later when I was almost 50. But when he left, my mom started going out and partying a lot, and she didn't come home. And one day, she just didn't come home at all. I remember looking out the babysitter's window, waiting for her to walk down the street from work, and she just never showed up, and nobody told me why. I cried and cried for days until I realized that she really wasn't going to be back. Several months later, my little sister and I were reunited with her in California. She was pregnant, married to someone that I had never seen before, and he drank a lot. He was really a bad alcoholic, and my mom was drinking a lot. And that's the point in my life where she started getting really physically abusive. I was just a little kid, and 2 babies later of hers that came along, I was taking care of them at 7 years of age when her and my stepdad would go out on day-long drunks, and I would stay home from school and take care of my little sisters and my brother. And I would just pray to God, and because I had gone to church with some of my friends and think, where are you? Where are you in my life? I feel so alone, and I don't think this is how you treat other people. And so there must be something about me that you don't love God. Just like my dad, there was something that he didn't love about me to stay around. And so at 6 years of age, I was already thinking for the first time how I might kill myself. Their marriage didn't work out. It was only a couple of years, and we came back to Colorado, but without my stepbrother and sister, and it just broke my heart because I loved them so much. I had taken care of them. They called me Mommy. And so there was another huge loss in my life, and that caused a lot of issues for me as far as feeling rejected and abandoned, not wanted. And when I was 12, I finally moved out of my mom's house with my little sister. She had just become so abusive that I couldn't take it anymore, and I felt like I was in danger with men coming in and out of the home. And so I went to live with my aunt and uncles, just really sweet people who took us in. But I think because of my insecurity and my lack of self-confidence, I got in with a group that accepted me. But they were the group of kids, not the wrong group of kids. They were just looking for the same things I was looking for, acceptance and love. And so I started doing what they were doing. And it was cigarettes at first, and then we started drinking. And pretty soon we were smoking dope and doing other kinds of drugs. And this went on for a long time. My aunt and uncle had their own problems to deal with in their marriage. And I was the oldest, and they really just didn't have time to see what I was doing. And so that went on for a couple of more years, and then I met my first husband, and he was a lot older than me, very controlling. We ended up getting married a couple of years after I got out of high school, and he became really abusive too. And I'm sure all those signs were there before I married him, but I guess I chose not to see it. I wanted to be in a marriage away from home where, I had the house with the white picket fence and the little kids running around, and I had sworn as a little girl that I was going to have this happy life with a family, and I would love my children and be there with them and never hit them and all those kinds of things. And it ended up where he was unfaithful to me. He was unfaithful to me the whole time, and so that was another loss. I ended up leaving him. I was determined that I wasn't going to live my life like that, with somebody who abused me and somebody who was unfaithful and didn't love me the way I wanted to be loved. And so I got divorced, and I was in a religion at the time that didn't believe in divorce, and you were excommunicated if you were divorced. And so, again, there was just more rejection, again, by a God that I didn't understand, that I didn't think was benevolent or loving or caring or faithful, but it was conditional. And at that point, I remember thinking I was never going to let anybody hurt me again. And I built up a really strong, hard outer shell, and very tough, very unforgiving myself, very critical. And I entered the workforce with a 17-month-old child, single mom, moved to Denver, started doing very well, went to school, but at the same time I just had this extreme sense of emptiness, and I didn't trust anybody. When I met Dave, my current husband, I had a hard time trusting him, and we went a lot of years living together. I wouldn't marry him, and eventually I did, but you know, our relationship was very volatile too. We both were partiers, we were drinking a lot. I was snorting cocaine behind his back at work, and you know, nobody knew. I looked like the perfect little corporate America woman, successful, said all the right things, did all the right things. What people didn't know is what I did after work, that I would drink until I practically passed out. When we moved to Atlanta, we were recruited to go there to work, and same thing. You know, I had this great job, had whatever I wanted. I didn't have to worry about money, and yet I would drive home from work and I would think, really, is this it? Why do I have this emptiness? And one day I was at my hairstylist, and he asked if he could pray for me, and I just thought, what? You know, and I guess so. I didn't want to be rude to him. So he did pray for me. I don't even remember what he said. I didn't care what he said. But I was driving down the road about 10 minutes later, and the tears started to flow. And all I could say was, Jesus, I give up. Jesus, I give up. And what I was saying was that I don't give up, is that I'm giving it to you because the way I've been doing it, it's not working. And so I'm going to try your way. And I can't really tell you how I knew about Jesus or God, just that I had periodically throughout my life gone to church here and there with different friends who invited me to different churches. And I didn't understand God, I didn't know who he was, but somehow I knew at this moment that Jesus was responsible for this huge burden, this heaviness that was lifted off of me. And I think for the first time in my life, I actually felt joy. And I suddenly didn't want to drink. My salvation was the Road to Damascus experience. It was Paul. Just like Paul, you know, he fell off the horse and he became a different person. I was driving a car, and suddenly I am ready to quit drinking, quit partying, all of those kinds of things. I went home. I didn't tell Dave about it. I wasn't sure what happened. When I finally did tell him, he was like, you know, I don't want anything to do with that. You do what you got to do. But his testimony would later be that, you know, he felt like he was losing his partying partner, and we were on two different roads. So I kept praying, God, I know you didn't save me to get divorced, but so what's up here? And then we moved to San Antonio. I started going to a church there. God was really tugging at my heart to attend church. At first I sat in the back of the church because I thought all these good people would see the sin all over me and what a terrible person I was. But slowly over the months I started moving forward, and eventually I realized I had gotten saved that day in my car all alone, and that Jesus had been there all along. I just didn't understand who he was. Shortly after that, when 9/11 occurred, Dave came back to the Lord. And at that point, we were off and running together, serving God, loving Him, being a good witness for Him, and instead of off partying and drinking and me drugging. So we moved to Pueblo. We moved back to Pueblo where our children were. God called us back here. We didn't understand that at first, but we immediately got involved in the church. We came to praise, and we were in Celebrate Recovery for 3.5 years. Got involved in other ministries as well. We were just so happy. Our marriage had evolved into something that was beautiful in God's sight. We learned how to love each other the way God intended for us to love each other. And then one day, I had to take him to the emergency room because he was in pain. And he died 24 days later, 24 days after he'd been diagnosed with colon and liver cancer. And I have to admit, the last 2 years have been such a struggle. I felt so alone so many times. I had to reevaluate everything that I believed. And once again, I was tempted to say, God, who are you? But even in my darkest moment, in that darkest pit where it just felt like I was totally alone, I knew from His promises that He was really there. And so I hung on to that. And now, a little more than 2 years later, I really feel true healing. I'll never stop missing Dave, and I'll never stop loving him or feeling like we're still married. But God has given me strength, and He's given me faith and self-confidence and a belief in myself. And so I trust Him. I trust that He'll always be there no matter what happens. And I just want to spend the rest of my life taking care of my grandchildren and exposing them to the Word of God and being like Jesus in their eyes, living my life for Him and praising God. My name is Linda, and I am second.